We have indeed. So these lions at the moment are not too far from where the buffalo are, but I don't see the whole pride. I only see at this stage 5 individuals. I can't see where the rest are. So we've got the oldest lioness that is busy standing up over there and kind of licking her chops and just sort of moving off slightly and maybe going to lie down. And then we've got a couple of the other lionesses lying down. Now the buffalo, in terms of where I was just now, are no more than, I would say, 50 meters from where we are. But the lionesses don't seem to be too interested at this stage. It's not to say that they won't. Maybe they're just waiting for those buffalo to come a little bit closer. Also, who knows how long this has been going on for, of these lions kind of with the buffalo and going back and forth. Now, this female here, you can see she's sporting a little bit of a new wound on her face. I'm going to try... Darby, let me just track it forward a bit for you because you're going to be much easier with the grass. And I just want to try and see. She's got what seems like a little gash underneath her eye. Now, I wonder if maybe, just maybe, she was one of the ones that had a bit of a run-in with the Avokas that night when we had all of that noise and chaos that was going on. I wonder if maybe she wasn't one that tried to stand her ground and just try to buy some time for the sub-adults to go away. You can see a little gash. Now, that's nothing to worry about. She's going to be okay from that. It's just going to be a little bit, probably a bit sore for now, but she'll be perfectly fine in time. Otherwise, she looks pretty good. There's no other visible signs of scars or scratching. Everybody else in the prides that I've seen so far looks pretty good. The only bad news is that I don't see the little cub at all. I haven't seen its tracks within the pride. And as far as I understand it, I spoke to some of the guys yesterday, they have not seen that little cub at all in the last few days. So I suspect that maybe, just maybe, that little cub is no longer around with this pride, which is very, very sad. I don't think we're going to have a situation where this pride would walk around for 4 or 5 days without it going and joining. And if it isn't with them for that long, it's going to have a bit of a problem because it's going to starting to be dehydrated severely. And maybe that's why Mom has been walking around calling and trying to find her and the pride kind of around this area. So we'll just have to see how it goes out, but it's never a good thing normally when you have lion fight and then a cub that is not with the pride. It's generally can be bad news, and either that cub got separated and is lost, or a situation where it must have been caught, unfortunately, by those males. Now, Nikki in final control. I don't know if her mom is here. There's a whole bunch of them underneath a weeping wattle, and I can't actually see who is inside of this weeping wattle. Judging by the tracks, it should be the whole pride. There's pretty much everybody's tracks were on the road at one point. So I only saw tracks at first of 3 of the females and 1 sub-adult, and then it seems as though later, when we had more tracks on Weaver's Nest, that we had a whole bunch of them, and it looked like even all the sub-adults were inside. So I think pretty much everybody should be here. It's going to be difficult to see. What I'm hoping is as these buffalo approach, so these lions come out a little bit so we can actually get an idea of who is around and who is actually kind of here and with the pride. And I'm hoping that we might get a little action with these buffalo, that these guys might decide to get up and start hunting them, and let's see how that goes. Anyway, we'll sit tight with the Nkuhumas for now and see what they get up to. While we do that, let's send you back across to Hosana and see if he's still playing tag with those vultures. Well, hopefully Brent will find the 2 of them together. Wouldn't that be something to have Shadulu and Hukumari, the 2 newbies, in Djuma together, and maybe even might be mating. I was looking at Shadulu the other day, and I don't think she's pregnant. She doesn't seem to be, but you never know when a leopard is. If she's just got 1 little cub, she'll only really start to show quite late, but it didn't seem like there was any milk being produced or any sort of sagging of the belly. They get a bit of a different roundness to them when they have cubs. But our Nkuhuma Pride is still just sitting. They're not really interested in these buffalo yet. The buffalo are not far. There's no ways that these lions haven't heard them or have seen these buffalo. That particular lioness is kind of standing and looking in that direction, so maybe she's going to take us towards them. I'm going to try and reposition ourselves a little bit to try and get a better view of what's going on, because we can't really see any of them now. Jeff, most certainly these lion prides have caught wind of the carcass, and this Nkuhuma Pride walked pretty much, I would say, maybe even 200 meters, 300 meters to the west of the carcass, not very far at all. They were right there, so they must have smelt it. Maybe they kind of went and investigated and decided elephants not for them. I've seen lions in the Sabi Sands countless times do this. Go past elephant carcasses, and really they just don't like, for some reason, are not interested in going and eating off the carcass itself. They get into a situation where they kind of will go and investigate, but they don't actually eat it in any way, which is strange to me, but that's how it goes. So I think these guys maybe were attracted by the smell and maybe by the commotion, but actually didn't feed off it itself. I'm surprised, though. I would have thought they would have gone in and investigated. It doesn't seem like they actually went towards the elephant. Maybe the wind was blowing in a different direction and they actually didn't smell it, and it's just a bit of fate that they kind of missed it. Databait, they are now, as the crow flies, I would say maybe a kilometer, not even. Yeah, maybe a kilometer, 900 meters, somewhere around there. They're not very far at all, so less than a mile away from that carcass. I suppose that today they might see a whole bunch of vultures dropping down into that area, and that might trigger them to start moving and start heading towards that elephant carcass. But I'm not sure. At this stage, I don't think so. It doesn't seem like they're too interested in anything. They're certainly not interested in hunting buffalo by the looks of things, because the buffalo has drifted off completely now. I can't see them anymore. They were not too far, but they seem to have carried on going in a sort of westerly direction, northwesterly direction. And the lions, as you can see, are very sleepy. Now, the reason that these guys are probably so sleepy is because they've walked so far. These guys were in Londolozi yesterday, so it gives you an idea of just how far lions can cover. I would love to know what route they took, if it was a direct route or if they zigzagged a little bit, but theoretically, these guys must have covered easily, I would say, 10 to 15 kilometers last night, which is a long way for a pride of lions. We tend to find the coalitions walk a lot further than these guys do, and so it's a long sort of walk for the Nkuhuma Pride themselves, and that's maybe why everybody's a little on the tired side. So Dave, the Birmingham boys went the opposite way of the Nkuhumas. They went to Londolozi and disappeared very, very fast down in that direction. Apparently their tracks crossed into Londo's and into that area. And so I'm pretty sure that's why the Nkuhuma Pride went so far, is because maybe the Birminghams were down there. In terms of where they are this morning, I'm not quite sure. I haven't heard any updates yet from anybody, but I would imagine that we might have a situation where these guys are probably still down in that area. The Birminghams at the moment, I think, have got so many options and so many different things to go and investigate and explore that it's becoming harder and harder for them to kind of spend a lot of time in one place. And so, you've got a situation where they're now mating with the Torchwood Pride, which is in the extreme northeast of the Sabi Sands. You've then got the Nkuhuma Pride. We've got the Styx Pride that they've got to cover. They've got to cover in Tsevu Pride. They've probably picked up the scent of the Salala Pride and are trying to go and dominate in there. So that's already 5 different prides of lions that they've got to look after. And that means that they're being stretched very thin at the moment. They're being pulled from the northern boundaries in Manyeleti all the way down to pretty much the southern Sabi Sands, because they are starting to even infiltrate down towards the southern pride. And so there's no one really standing up to them, and that's why they're just expanding more and more and more. And it's the reason why Mfumo hasn't been seen for so long. He's busy mating with countless different females down there, and so he's got an area where he's got females, he's got food, he's got water, and he doesn't need to come up here and patrol. You probably find this is a situation where he's kind of dominating those prides because he doesn't have competition from his brothers who are up this area trying to kind of protect all of these prides, and so that's maybe why he's sitting so much down at the bottom. What you might find with them is, as soon as the females down there have been mated with and have cubs, and those cubs start to grow a little bit, you might find the Birminghams then push back up this direction when all of these females in the form of the Nkuhumas and the Styx start coming into their estrus cycles again. Then you might find them coming back. The problem is, and this is what's happened to the Mpochos, the Majingalans, everybody else that's kind of Matimbas that have come before them, is that they take such vast tracts of land that inevitably young males start to sneak in, like these Avaka males, and they start to just glean off little pieces of it. And it's because these guys are just so stretched, they can't actually kind of protect every single direction. And so I wouldn't be surprised that the Birminghams follow the exact same trait that the Majingalans and the Matimbas have followed before them, in that they came into this northern section, dominated, and then they've pushed straight south and west. As they've followed all the new prides that they're starting to conquer, they kind of push into the western sector. And, you know, the Majingalans at the moment are getting so old that they're not going to be able to really stand up to 4 younger male lines in the form of the Birminghams. And so, you know, it's a situation where the Birminghams pretty much have free reign in the Sabi Sands. Within the next year, I would imagine, they'll start to kind of push further west, and they're going to then have anywhere they want, really, they can choose. And so that's the reason why they keep running off and disappearing from here, and then they kind of get pulled back here because of the prides that are up in this area. And so they're in a little bit of a phase where they're torn as to where they want to be. These Avoca males are going to be interesting because theoretically, what would be nice for us is if they kind of wedged themselves, if they somehow got around the Birminghams and wedged themselves between the Majingalans and the Birminghams, and that would have then hopefully kept a buffer from these Birminghams moving as far as they are. But I don't see it happening. I feel like the Avocas are going to be happy to be up in this area, and the ripple effect of that is going to be huge. We're already seeing the Nkuhumas going very far out of their territory down to Londolozi, and I believe this morning the Tortured Pride has gone way south into Chitwa Plains on the border of Mala Mala, which is quite far for them too. So it's interesting how it's affecting them. Dale, you asking if the boys were on the dam cam last night. I don't know, as far as I have heard. They might have been, but I don't think so. I just think maybe them roaring might have been them roaring, but I don't think that was the Birmingham boys that we heard roaring, because the Avoca males yesterday were in Buffelshoek, and I heard them from the tent last night roaring, and it was them. It wasn't the Birmingham boys that were calling. So what interests me about this whole situation is that the Birmingham boys came in here and they made a massive amount of noise, scent marked everywhere, and then went south again. And I thought maybe the Avocas had gone far, but the day that they went back south into Londolozi, the Avocas were found at Jakana Dam. Now, Jakana Dam is not far from the Buffelshoek Djuma boundary, and so I don't know if the Birminghams maybe thought they had chased them, but they actually hadn't, and those Avocas were still standing and sitting up in that northern reaches. It's a very interesting kind of thing to kind of think about, because I don't know, it's going to be an interesting dynamic that's going to play out. And the Avocas then went yesterday, or not last night, the night before, and chased the Tortured Pride and chased buffalo, and so they don't seem to be wanting to go anywhere, and that means that we're going to have an interesting kind of situation going forward. Our lions, though, are fast asleep. I'm going to try and position in a bit of a better way for Dave, and also so that I don't blind myself in the sun. And while we do that, let's send you back across to Brent, who is still bumbling about, and hopefully he's got an update as to where those tracks have headed. They are going to be very sleepy for the rest of the day. I think they've had a long, long evening of walking and moving, and who knows what else they were kind of up to last night. I have a feeling they also tried to chase these buffalo at some point and maybe just didn't go well, and that's why they now found themselves a little bit of shade and they're resting. Every now and then one pops up and moves a little bit, but for the most part it seems as though everybody is seriously tired this morning. So I think they're going to just spend the day napping. The sun is starting to get up now, and I can tell you that it's got a bit of venom in it. It's going to be a warm, warm day when they do eventually, or when the sun does get up properly. It's still early in the morning, and it's starting to get much, much warmer. So if it's got this kind of heat at 7 o'clock in the morning and all the lions are searching for shade, then you know by sort of 12 o'clock it's going to be extremely warm. And the thing is, though, is that at the moment, I'm trying to work out exactly how many members of the Nkuhuma Pride we've got here. It's difficult because of the way that they're all lying. It's very obscured. You can't really see too much. But at the back, right on that side over there, there's the old lioness is lying there. You can't even actually see her, but she's lying in the grass over there. Then you've got one of the sub-adults that's standing up behind the tree. And then from there, I can count another 8 individuals. So I'm missing one, but I can't see under this wattle if there's another one there. So I can count 4 adult females that are here, but I can't see if there's a 5th adult female in amongst all of this, and I can't see which sub-adults or anything like that. So not very easy to tell exactly how many is here. Now, Tweety, I think Amber Eyes is here, but I can't tell you for sure. I haven't seen all of them putting up their heads. I know the eldest lioness is here. I know the lioness that is kind of in the middle is here. She's the one that's got these kind of very big lines down her face. And I think Amber Eyes is the one that is lying closest to where I am. So if I just lean back slightly, you'll see her. She's just right here, kind of moving about, and she's got her head up. So I'm hoping she'll look at me and I can just work out who exactly it is. Difficult to say because, like I said, they're all kind of obscured by vegetation. Although, is this... I think this might be the lioness we saw first. Yes, that's the lioness we saw first. Okay, so we've got her. Now, the lioness I haven't seen is the lioness with the one eye that is a little bit milky. So I haven't seen her, and I haven't seen Amber Eyes or the youngest female. I've seen all the sub-adults, but the rest I can't work out just yet. I'm pretty sure they're all here. 99% sure that there's 11 of them kind of hidden about, and hopefully at some point they'll all stand up and kind of move somewhere, and we'll get something and be able to actually work out exactly who is here and who's not here. Now, I know at one point the youngest lioness was on her own for a while, and so I wonder if she's maybe somewhere in this general vicinity, or maybe she hasn't caught up with the pride yet. I'm not quite sure. The dude, in terms of eating of lion cubs, you would have pythons would eat lion cubs, hyenas, leopard, other lions. You might see very brazen wild dogs if they came across lion cubs on their own and no sign of a lioness, but generally not. So it's mainly those four that are very, very dangerous. Crocodiles actually are another thing that go after lion cubs. I've seen some crazy things on the Sabi River with lioness carrying cubs across a river, and as she was carrying the cub across the river, she was wading through, and this crocodile came out of nowhere and actually grabbed the cub out of the mother's mouth. So as she was carrying it, this crocodile came and it latched onto her head, and the cub was in her mouth, and because she was a bit wet, the crocodile kind of slipped and it grabbed onto the cub itself and just ripped it out of her mouth and went into the water, into the depths, and the mother just stood there absolutely bewildered by all of this. A few cuts on her face was a really very hectic thing to see. And the problem was that by the time she'd gotten to that point, she was about maybe 3/4 of the way across the river, and her other 3 cubs were still on the other side. And so she had to now go back again to try and go and sort out the other 3 cubs that were now trying to get into the water to swim after their mother. And this crocodile was obviously looming, and one cub is not a massive meal for a big crocodile, and particularly in that area you get some really big crocodiles. And so this poor kind of mother was so stressed, and she eventually got back across, and the crocodile actually came for her again, but she managed to swat it away with her paw. And then she managed to get back to her cubs, and from there she was able to kind of, settle everything down, and then they walked off. But it was a pretty intense, emotional kind of scene, and not something you want to see every day. So crocodiles are a huge threat to lions, particularly in river system areas. And yes, exactly. So Nikki was just talking about a crocodile going after a male lion close to a part called Lower Sabi in South Africa, in Kruger National Park, and that was also absolute madness. This poor male lion was swimming across the river, and this crocodile just came and smashed him from the side. So, lions have to be careful of crocodiles, and then, like I say, the rest of the other predators are pretty easy. Interestingly enough, though, with lion cubs, is that you also have a situation where birds of prey can be a bit of a danger. So things like martial eagle, crowned eagle, black eagle, those 3 are all big enough to take lion cubs. I haven't heard of any reports of them actually doing it, but I know that martial eagles have taken hyenas, cubs, and wild dog puppies, and so I wouldn't put it past them to go after something like a lion cub as well. It's in the right scale and range for them to be able to do it, and so it could very well be possible. Interesting enough, all of these lions are busy feeding off grass at the moment. They literally are just grazing and trying to clean their digestive systems, and I've seen a lot of the different cats have been doing it lately, and Anna Marie and Starlight, they do it because it's a way to kind of clean out their digestive system. So they eat it, and it often can basically cause them to either get sick and they then regurgitate any hair and bone, skin that they're battling to digest, and that means that they they clean that stomach out and are able to then feed again and get in everything, and they're not going to have stuff just sitting inside there. So that's why they do it a lot. So you see domestic cats doing it as well, and so they eat off it. What they could also be doing on a morning like this morning, we were saying that it was quite a cold morning, and the reason that they could also be doing it is because the grass is covered in dew at the moment, and so instead of having to walk somewhere to go and drink water, they can actually just sort of put their mouths on the grass, and they can actually gain moisture from the grass itself. I know it sounds really odd, and you would think that it's a really tough way to find a lot of water, but you can be surprised at how much water these guys can get off just from dew and off grass and those kind of things. And there's actually a video that went around for a while of a lion that went up to a tent in the Kalahari Game Reserve. So in South Africa, we have a game reserve in the western side, in the arid parts, and inside that game reserve, you can camp without fences, and the lions came to the tent, and where the dew had built up on the side of the tent, on the plastic part of the tent, the lions came and they were licking all the dew off of that tent. So it just goes to show that they can actually get water off of it or off grass, and so sometimes they actually don't eat the grass or snip it. They're just trying to pull the water droplets off that grass and try and basically drink from the grass itself. So it's two kind of reasons for it, and it's pretty effective. The problem is that every single one of our lions is now gone to sleep. There is not one that is standing up at the moment, and so I think it is that time of the day where they are already going into comatose state, and I don't blame them. Like I say, I think they've had a long evening, and so I'm not sure how much longer we'll sit with them. The buffalo are gone way away. Can't even hear the oxpeckers anymore or the grunts of the buffalo. And so while we kind of contemplate what our next move is going to be, let's send you back across to Brent, who hopefully is still on the trail of the beautiful Shadulu.